The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning. It is the most glorious autumnal Southern Oregon morning this morning, and I'm delighted to be welcoming David Wolf, who is our presenter today. David is a founder and owner of a company called InBusiness, and they are doing a really remarkable job with a growing number of our clients in really helping people understand the benefits of marketing smartly online. David's topic this morning is a really key one. He's going to be talking to us all about Google Dynamic Remarketing. So let me take just a moment to talk about why I think that this is one of the most important things you can all be learning about right now. You all know, we send a lot of emails. We do a lot of email marketing because it works, because it allows us to communicate effectively with the people who care about the software we're building. We have noticed just in the last 4 weeks a tremendous decline in the number of people who open our emails, and it's not because we're spamming you all the time. It's because so many of our users use Gmail addresses. And those of you who are doing email marketing should go and have a look and see if you too are seeing a dramatic fall off in the number of Gmail users who even see your emails. The reason for that, if you haven't seen this, then please log into a Gmail account and notice how Gmail is now differentiating between transactional emails and social emails and marketing emails. And those of us who are using email to remind our users about what it is we sell will find that our emails are being largely put into the marketing tab. And trust me, nobody out there is going to the marketing tab. We're all just relying upon the transactional tab, perhaps going to social because our friends are in there, but never going to the companies who want us to read about their stuff. So Google is dramatically changing the way that email marketing has always been successful for most of us. And hand in hand with that, the Hummingbird algorithm has also made dramatic effects to the amount of organic traffic that most of us are going to see. And the writing, to my mind, is very clearly on the wall. We have to be selling our products. If we want to get any traffic from Google, it's got to be going to Google Shopping. Now, if we're feeding our products, and I personally say a very big thank you to DotFeed for doing this for us, if we are pushing our products to Google Shopping, then Google knows about our products. And immediately we can begin to do some good by using Google's dynamic remarketing. Essentially what this is about is when somebody lands on your site, and particularly on a product page, and shows some interest in one of your products, what Google will allow you to do is keep reminding them strategically about the fact that they were looking at your product on your page. So because Google is selling that product for you and knows all about the connection between your page and your product, then Google can start to remarket to that person. So enough really of my explanation, because David is going to do it a whole lot better. I just want to, at a very conceptual level, say Google is saying email isn't going to be as effective. Make sure that you're selling. Hummingbird means that you really need to be selling on Google Shopping. If you're selling on Google Shopping, then you might as well do Google Dynamic Remarketing. And the good news out of all of that is it appears that this really works, that to be smart and to know who wants what and then put it in front of them instead of dropping things they don't want into their email box seems to be a pretty smart way to use the internet. With all of that, I'm going to make David presenter. David, thank you for being with us here today. And
thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we'll do a quick transition. This is going to be relatively informal, in part because this is still a relatively new topic, and I usually end up with a lot of questions. The second is because I was on vacation last week. I recently got engaged, so I now have a better half to tell me what to do, which is nice. But we're going to go ahead and start with an example of what Joe was talking about. This isn't remarketing. This has to do with this has to do with the tabs that she was talking about. If you have an older Gmail account, a lot of accounts don't have this yet, but they're rolling it out. But if your account was created more recently, you may see these. So whereas an old account typically just had one inbox, all new accounts now have multiple tabs. Here, as you can see, 5. And these are actually examples of emails that have been thrown into the promotions tab. And you can definitely see how that's definitely far out of the way instead of in the line of sight, which is why people are having a big issue with email deliverability into Gmail. They're getting in, but they're not being seen. Ideally, we do know of, just so this isn't about remarketing, but we do know of a couple retailers that have come up with strategies straight out of the Internet Marketer's Handbook, the guys that do rely almost entirely on email, which is your goal is to try and get somebody to take one of your emails and to drag them back into that primary tab, which is another hurdle you have to go through, but then your emails will be sent back in instead of going to the promotions field. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. You can offer coupons, you can offer something, but it has to be related with getting them to do that. And actually, just like asking somebody to buy something, you now need a call to action to tell people to take you out of the promotions tab and into the primary stream. But either way, you are going to see a decrease in the return on investment of email in the process, and that was the precursor to them doing this explanation of remarketing. We've done a couple remarketing webinars in the past. So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about why you should listen to me very quickly. Joe had given me a heads up, but we've been doing this for a long time. This is what we focus on, is this type of thing. And so let's start with what is remarketing. This is the best way to explain it if you're not. This is a visual example, if you can see this, of what dynamic remarketing actually is. So the first step is that you have to upload your products to the Google Merchant Center. If you're using DotFeed, this is probably something you've already done. If not, you can shoot me an email or the Vortex team and focus on that first. You can't do dynamic remarketing until your products are in Google Merchant Center. So that's the first hurdle you need to tackle, because you can't do your product listing ads either if your products are not in Google Merchant Center. Real quickly, I'll cover it, just kind of show you what that is. So that is that scenario where when you type in green shirts, for example, green T-shirts, these are the product listing ads right here. You see these Green Lantern shirts. You cannot be in these unless you have a Google Merchant Center. And Joe said it, and I will confirm it again over and over. We are seeing the majority of e-commerce revenue driven by search at this point in time is coming through these ads. There's still some value in being in the regular ads. There's obviously still some great value in being organically listed, but the revenue drivers at this point in time are these product listing ads. If you're not in them, then you're missing a huge portion of a robust strategy, actually the most critical one at this point. If I was going to spend $1 anywhere, it would be on product listing ads first. So product listing ads first, and then I would worry about the organic search traffic and the regular Google ads. So if we go back, the next step on that is what actually happens. So when someone visits your website wherever they go on the page, Google, if you install this properly, if you downloaded the dynamic remarketing plugin for AspDotNetStorefront that Vortex really got together and they developed extremely fast. I gave them kind of a little bit of guidance, and they just took the ball and ran with it. So they made it very, very easy to install dynamic remarketing. Once you have that, when a visitor visits your website, so I will go to an example of one that I know has this installed. Let's see, who has Joe, do you know of a customer? I want to show this because I have a tag managed that would show this. I can't think off the top of my head. Do you know of a customer off the top of your head that has this installed?
Let me run and get you a name.
Let's see. I'm trying to think here. Well, either way, what will happen, as soon as she gets the name, we'll jump back to that, but what will happen is when you go to, let's say, for example, Amazon. We'll just use Amazon for now until she gets the store back. When we inspect here, we'll go down, and here you'll see a script tag, which will be, if you can see here, I have this nice little tool that will say, it will actually tell me that the remarketing script has been installed. And then from there, the person that was using the computer will actually be tagged with that cookie. That's where the fun begins. That's where the technical process ends for you, and where the marketing part begins. So if you have to get the technical stuff out of the way, and then the marketing can occur. Once that happens, and they're added to your remarketing list from visiting your site, it doesn't matter what page of your site they visit, you can then start to show them dynamic product ads. And what a dynamic product ad is instead of you showing a generic banner with a single message, the dynamic ads are going to show them products that are relevant to their search that are inside of your Google Merchant Center. That's why it's so important that you get your products in your Google Merchant Center, because Google can't do dynamic advertising unless you have your products in Google Merchant Center. But what will happen is that when somebody, let's say, for example, visits page 1, I'll go ahead and use one of the sites that we own while she's waiting, just so that you can see how this works.
David, I was just going to give you 6pm.com, number 6.
Okay, great. Oh, number 6? Okay. Great. Okay, so we're going to go to a product page here. Okay, and then what is, I'm going to go into these tags, and you'll see that the remarketing tag here has been established. This is a Google Tag Assistant. This is a nice little, if you have Chrome, this is a nice little tool to help you diagnose if there's any issues. And what this is saying is that this is a product page, that this is the name of the product, this is the category, and this is the value of that product. And so now, in doing that, what's happening is that AspDotNetStorefront's plugin has sent that information to Google AdWords and connected it to all the products in this person's Merchant Center. And what happens once that occurs is that this particular product now, as we're searching around the web, will show us ads that are related to this product, or actually this product, as opposed to just a generic buyfrom6pm.com type of ad. And that is extremely powerful, because just the same reason why I always recommend people in e-commerce use a top products category, or products or featured products that are based on what kind of sales have been driven, and also similar products that if your website is tracking it, so that your website knows which products are also typically bought when someone buys that product. These work very well because people are very similar. So a lot of the times, if you have 10,000 visitors to your website that are buying something, a lot of times people that like this product are very likely to like or view other products that are very similar, and this is going to increase your revenues. What dynamic remarketing does is it expands that concept across the entire web. So now you can show similar products to people that are browsing around doing that process, even when they're no longer on your website. And that's hugely valuable. It was valuable even before remarketing came along, and it's really expanded the process. And the great part about it is it's relatively inexpensive. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of go through a mock setup of a dynamic remarketing ad so that you guys can see this. This is one of our campaigns. This is our InBusiness account I use for demoing. So what we would do is we would come into the display network only. Okay, and this is actual Google. We're going to show you guys how to set this up. And we're going to go down to remarketing. We're going to click this tab. We'll call this test remarketing. Okay, we're going to give this a budget. If you're just setting it up, you can set it to $1 per day if you're afraid that you're going to set this up and it's going to go crazy. And here's where you have to know there's a difference between a regular remarketing campaign and a dynamic remarketing campaign. In order to use the dynamic remarketing, you do have to have, like it says, a Google Merchant Center account, and the products do need to be installed in that process. And then once you do that, what will happen is it'll ask you if you'd like to set this up. And it used to be, it's kind of annoying, they've kind of hid the actual code that needs to be installed. But in your case, what you would do is you would email to where it would go. So if you can just email it to yourself. There is a way to go in and find it, but actually, you know what? I don't want to. I want to do this exactly the way that you would have to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And then what will happen is it's going to automatically create some standardized lists for you. And these lists are important. Some people bypass these lists, and sometimes when I'm doing a quick setup, I will, because it did used to take a while to do this, but it's great to have. What this is this is your funnel, so to speak. So this is all visitors. This is anybody that's visited your website. There's the general visitor who visited but didn't look at a specific product, so they came to the home page or they came to a category page. Product viewer, so this is a person that looked at something very specific. It's self-explanatory. Shopping cart abandoners are people that were in your shopping cart but didn't actually purchase, and then the people that purchased. And the reason why typically the way most people use this is the further down the line you go, the more valuable that customer is, the more relevant they were, the closer they were to generating revenue for you or have generated revenue for you in the past. And so you're going to want to bid more to remarket to those people. There are people that misuse remarketing and go broke in the process because, you know, somebody visits their site and they, you know, they're willing to spend whatever they can to show ads to that person again, and that's typically not the best way to do remarketing. So now that we're set up, as you can see, this has shown, since I already have a Google Merchant Center ID, it has connected Google Merchant Center, and this stuff has just added things if you wanted to schedule. This is what the normal process for a remarketing campaign or any campaign in AdWords would be. And so we would click Setup, and now this is going to have our selected audiences in case. I'm not sure which tag, since I don't have this particular tag into Google or in my on our website. It's not going to show our list networks. But what will happen is as soon as you install this code, which will be sent to you, this is the email that you'll get and the tag. The AspDotNetStorefront plugin has specific instructions. You won't need to place this entire tag. In fact, if you have a remarketing tag in general, typically this is the only piece of the puzzle that you will need to, I believe, that you need to install. This part is actually pre-included by, excuse me, pre-included by the AspDotNetStorefront plugin. And they do have specific instructions on that, so that's going to be better if you're using the plugin to make sure that you get this right. But you do need to have the tag in place, and then what will happen is that over time you'll start to see these lists that are under the audience section, under shared library of your AdWords account. I don't want to click out of this because I'll have to go back to it, but under shared library and under audiences, you'll be able to see here your remarketing lists, and your list sizes will grow. And in order to activate a list, it has to have 100 people in it before your ads will start showing. So the more traffic you have, the faster you'll start to see your ads. And this is actually something very interesting most people don't realize. I typically don't start out with this. This is a pretty advanced strategy. But now Google actually knows when somebody that has been to your website and you've tagged with a remarketing campaign is making another search in Google. So you have two list sizes. You have your display network list size, and you have your Google search list size. And you can actually adjust the value of your search bids based on whether or not somebody is part of an audience. And what that means is, let's say that you know that you have a high-priced item, and the odds of somebody usually needs to make 4 or 5 different searches, and they're going to go across 10 websites before they buy an item. That's popular in the travel industry. You can actually adjust your bid to say, if somebody has been to my site and is searching in Google, I would like to increase my bids by 30% or 20% or 10% when that particular person searches again in Google. That's what this number is. Typically, you're just, for dynamic remarketing, the number you're going to be looking at for the size of your audience is here. This is your list size for the display network. And these are your different audiences. And what I usually do is I will typically, they put all of these audiences in one ad group. I will usually turn this into 4 ad groups so I can bid on these independently with a little more clarity. But for now, we'll go ahead and we're going to go ahead and give a 5-cent bid. Usually anywhere between 50 cents to $1 is plenty of bid to get you a lot of visibility. And then what you'll see happen is that your products will actually populate. I happen to have some products. I don't know what website I connected this with, but your products will actually populate in the dynamic text and dynamic display ads here. And the way that you will do this is you'll have to go in and you can choose what type of where you want your logo to come from. It can be, if you're lucky, from your site. If you're, let's check and see if that's going to work. So yeah, so we'll use this. I don't think that, okay, it worked on a white background. Usually you're going to want to use have a PNG so that it's clear, so that you can do this, and you can manipulate these ads a pretty significant amount. You can change the headline text if you want for your value proposition. So value proposition goes here. And then you can change the shop now. When you go into more advanced settings, you can change your logo padding and the way that you look, and so on and so forth. They have a lot of different varieties. I typically would recommend to a customer to use one that, instead of just showing the picture of the product, maybe has a little bit more explanation of what's going on. So possibly a product description. As you can see, there's a lot of different variations here you can choose from. Let's see if we can find one that has a product description. Okay. Here we go. This is a good one. And so this, you can see this is dynamic. This is pulling from one of the merchant feeds in our set. And the person can go to Shop Now. And then what will happen is, if we review this, which is pretty neat, we can select the ad sizes. So this is a huge value, because typically you're going to spend at least a couple $100 getting a set of banners made for your website. It's free inside of Google AdWords. If you have a manager, they typically, if they're going to do these, they shouldn't charge too much to do this. But it creates all the different sizes that you're going to need to run a campaign and be effective with dynamic remarketing right here. If something doesn't quite look right, you can turn it off or turn it on, and then we can click Done, and we will save the ads. And now we have a dynamic remarketing banner set that's created. This is critical because this is what's going to be shown to your audience. You can play with this if you want. You can add background images to give it a little bit more pizzazz. A lot of times, most of the dynamic remarketing banners that I see online are typically pretty standardized. If you really want yourself to stick out, they have some great stuff here. You can just play with and see. That isn't really relevant to our audience, but if I was to use a PNG logo, that wouldn't have that white block there. It would just show behind the background. So either way, we're going to go ahead and just save this one, even though I wouldn't use that background normally. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I have to put. Okay. And the nice thing about this too is you can also add tracking URL query parameters in here. This is helpful. This is a more advanced thing, so you can ask questions about that, but I think most of the people here aren't going to be paying attention to that. And now we're done. We will create our ads. And we are off and running. So we have 21 ad sizes that were created in probably about 5 minutes. It's a huge value. And when Google created this tool, I was super excited. Saves us a ton of time and productivity. And it's usually going to take a couple days for Google to approve those ads once we have that. And that's it. That is all that's needed to get a basic dynamic remarketing campaign set up. Now when we go into here, this is where you're going to see what the results of your dynamic remarketing campaign are. It's going to be under Display Network, and you're going to have to click under Interests in Remarketing. You'll see all of your different audiences set up here. And this is where you can decide how much each one of these is worth. And typically you're going to see something like a ladder. So if we were going to enable this one, our general visitors, we're going to, we're going to be 25 cents. Here, let's say we're going to go to 45 cents. Shopping cart abandoners, we're going to go to 60. And then past buyers, we're going to go to 85. These are not numbers that I recommend. It's completely different for every audience. It depends on the value of your sales. It depends on how many visits you think you need to get sales, so on and so forth. But this is a great way to really determine which audience you want to target and how much that audience is worth. So once you have that, you're good to go. At that point, you're going to start gathering some data just to see what kind of numbers you're going to have. And typically what you're going to see is a lot of people are a little bit surprised. Your cost numbers, as far as the numbers of conversions that you're going to have, are going to be a little out of whack for your normal campaigns. And the reason why that is there's a couple values to doing a dynamic remarketing campaign most people don't realize. One is the actual sales that you're going to catch, where people are going to actually click that ad and they're going to go through and they're going to buy. But the other part of it is the fact that you're going to have a significantly larger branding impact on the customers that are visiting your website. And many of them will actually skip clicking on your ad, go back to your website through organic search or directly, and end up buying without ever clicking on the ad. And that doesn't get tracked a lot of times into remarketing, but it's something that you should know. Overall, we typically see higher numbers for the rest of the channels when a customer implements a remarketing or dynamic remarketing campaign. I'll say that again. When a customer implements a remarketing or dynamic remarketing campaign, they usually see a rise in the benefits of all of the other traffic channels that they have. So even if you're not seeing direct conversions from people clicking on the ads and buying, you typically will see better results overall from running even a base level standardized remarketing campaign. And it doesn't have to be $10,000. Typically these are very inexpensive, and the number of impressions that you get is very high in comparison to what you would typically have to spend. So that would be the basics of it. I want to cover another issue that most people are not paying attention to. So the question is, what is the difference between a regular remarketing campaign and a dynamic remarketing campaign? And there is benefits to both. So some people will have issues getting a dynamic remarketing campaign set up properly. It's really important. You don't want to run a dynamic remarketing campaign unless you can verify that your tagging has been installed properly. And the reason why is that even without actually having my products tagged, I can run a dynamic remarketing campaign. If people are visiting my site and they're tagging with my cookies, but they're not, the product information is not connecting properly, what will happen is Google will randomly pick a product to show that person. And if you only have 10 products, the odds are that that's going to be very relevant. If you have thousands of products, or your products span across multiple categories, where there's a good chance that a person looking at one product wouldn't be relevant at all for another product, you may be doing a lot of extremely irrelevant advertising to people unless you have that set properly. So it's really important that if you're going to use the dynamic remarketing, that you do confirm that your tags, the tags that you have, are actually installed properly. And somebody at Vortex can do that for you, I believe, or if you're working with a pro, they should be able to confirm that this type of information is passing properly to Google, so that you're showing relevant advertising. And then you'll just want to watch, if you do see your dynamic ads, are they showing something relevant, or are you seeing the same products every single time? Because that can be an issue. If you are having trouble installing dynamic remarketing properly, I usually will recommend that customers do this. This is kind of like the backup that you can do while you're getting all that stuff sorted out. So you can come into the settings of this campaign here. Actually, I believe it's in the okay, so this is in the setup process. I'll do one of these as a setup process, and then one as a how to fix if you set it up originally like that and it's not working. So let's say we were going through this same process again, and we're going through here, and we decide that we don't have everything set up properly, we're not using Google Merchant Center and DotFeed after the thousands of times that Joe and Vortex have said it's a good idea, and I will reference that, but let's say you're not, okay? So what you would do is you would turn off the Enable Dynamic Remarketing here, and then once you do that, you would save and continue, and you're going to get the same thing. It's going to ask you if you want to set up which list you want to advertise on, and we can say we can do this, and this is going to be I need to remember to pause this when I'm done, and then you'll get a different option. So they'll show you some different messaging because you're not dynamically populating your information, but they do still have a really neat tool that you can use. I'm going to skip this for now because we went through the text development. And then from here, you would add in your own ads. And the difference from this is that instead of showing products, you're going to be showing generic branding messaging. And if you don't have that product information where you're displaying relevant products, this is typically the better way to go to get your message across. And the reason why is that this is something where you can do more of a cohesive brand message to your audience as opposed to specific product information. And both are different tools. And they are both very good at playing a role. So if you're doing a site-wide store sale, for example, you may want to run a remarketing ad that's just value propositions, or customer testimonials, or anything that you would any of the great valuable content that you're pushing through your email chains, your email funnels, and all the other places. This is a great way to deliver that same information across the audience, especially since they're no longer going to be seeing it in email. So if you have a message that you want to get out to the world, create a text ad or create a static image ad, upload it, and create a remarketing campaign the exact same way. So you see this would be an all-visitor campaign, and everybody on that list would eventually see the ads that I create for this particular remarketing campaign. And again, if you're having trouble or if you suspect that dynamic remarketing is not working properly, this may be another route to go. But as e-commerce companies, we really should strive to get the dynamic remarketing working, because when it does work, it works very, very well. It's great at bringing people back into the site. The return on investment, from what I've seen, is extremely good. So that's what we have. I'll go through here again just as a recap. So this is the lists that are set up again, and this is a pretty good standard. You can look around the web to find different recommendations of types of lists that you're created, but all the lists are based on what pages of a website somebody visits or what products they view. So these are static lists. These are product viewers. Anybody that visits any product on your website is going to go into that list with dynamic remarketing. Before dynamic remarketing, if I wanted to do that, I would have had to use some sort of URL structure to say anybody that visits a page that has a product in it, or a category product identifier in the URL structure, should go here, which dynamic remarketing is very helpful, because a lot of times with the URL structures of AspDotNetStorefront, we work a little bit differently. So dynamic remarketing, the add-on, has made that much easier to do on the platform. So kudos to them. We covered the ads. Again, this is the same thing. This is a great tool that saves you a ton of money. To develop a 21 size dynamic display ad banner, if you were to go out to even one of the cheaper places like Elance, is going to be relatively expensive. To do it through Google's remarketing platform is free, or at our time is about a half hour. It is important to have a clear format of your logo. This is something that, if you give somebody a garbage logo, the ads aren't going to look as professional. Product images, we've been harping on product images for a while now. I remember we were talking about it at the last Vortex meetup in Denver, and this is the same thing. Your product is going to look a lot better in your ads. Your ads are going to look a lot more professional if you have products that have a white or no background. Products do have to be in Google Merchant Center. That's a hurdle that hopefully you've already covered. If you haven't, that's the first thing you need to worry about before you get into dynamic remarketing. It's important that you have the right mindset as well for the focus on success. This is about getting visibility to the products that sell naturally in your store and keep funneling to the best sellers. So this whole concept of showing people also viewed and putting your top sellers at the top of your category, this just, again, this expands this onto the web, and it's getting the most visibility to the things that are generating you revenue. I really don't want to like seeing people taking these kinds of tools and trying to funnel visibility to the places where they just have excess stock that for some reason won't sell. That stock isn't selling for a reason. It's important that you really use these tools to get the visibility to the revenue drivers for your company. This is something from another slide. You can use, if you're having image troubles, you can check with, if you have a website design firm, they might be able to do it for you. There's also, you can go out and check, like remove the background or a lot of other places to get your image removal done. It's definitely something that is relatively inexpensive now. And I think that should cover from basics. I'd rather leave some time for asking questions because it's a relatively complex process, and a lot of people get tripped up. So is there anybody out there on the webinar today that has had some issues with dynamic remarketing or still has some confusion as to what it is and what it does?
Dave, it's Jason Steele here. I'm not seeing anyone with any questions currently at this time, but we'll give it a few to see if anyone has anything.
Anybody over at Vortex got some questions that have been asked from any of the customers that you've run into that I didn't cover?
Not recently, no. Not that I have personally heard, no.
Guys, if anybody that's still on the webinar, it's really important. This is still a strategy that not a lot of smaller businesses have implemented. I mean, the big fish that are out there have been using this tool. They were part of the betas, but e-commerce companies that are under 10 million, there's just not that many of them that are utilizing these tools, and they are valuable. And the cost of doing remarketing compared to other forms of marketing is relatively inexpensive and extremely effective. I highly recommend that you jump on this. You're still going to be an early mover. I mean, as far as I know, AspDotNetStorefront is the only platform that even has a dynamic remarketing plugin. At least when they were developing it, that was the case. I don't know of anybody else that had done it yet because it's only been an option even for a few months. So before that they rolled it out to the rest of the world. So take advantage of these things.
I got a few questions coming in now, Dave.
Okay.
First one is from Megan. It's how do I block my own IP from remarketing?
That's a good question. So it's actually kind of funny. Usually it's not a bad idea just to see it because the cost of seeing your remarketing is going to be relatively inexpensive. So you're really only spending money when it's clicked on. So don't click on it. Really the only way to block your IP from remarketing. Whereas I'm sure you know how to block it from Google Analytics. If you want to block your IP from Google Analytics, you would simply come in here and you would type in, let's go down to, let's see, where's our, I'm trying to find ours here. I think it's in a different account. But what you would do is you would go into your settings here, go to admin. You would go into filters, and then you would do a new filter, and you would exclude an IP address here. But this is going to be for your analytics. It's a good idea if you do that. But for Google, the best way to honestly to do that if you don't want to see your own remarketing is to actually just use, if you have Chrome or Firefox, you use something called an incognito window, and an incognito window will remove all cookies every time you close the browser. And so that's the best way to do that, is to just, the best way to take yourself off a remarketing list is just delete that cookie, because that's how it works. So if we go into, let's see here, so if I was to go into your history, inside of your history will be these cookies, and that would be under settings. And you would go under, let's see, I believe it's the delete. I'm trying to find it here. Got to remember how to do this in Chrome. It's under Show Advanced Settings. There we go. And clear. What you would want to do is clear browsing data. That's how you're going to remove your cookies. And as soon as you remove your cookies, you'll no longer be on your own remarketing list. But it's not really going to cost you anything. I would recommend, I mean, I don't clear myself from my own browsing data. I don't think it's something you have to worry about.
We got another one here from Tom Cox.
Okay.
He's wondering, you said the list to have 100 people before ads show. So if we could have relatively low volume, could the leads be only by time we collect 100 names in a restricted category such as cart abandoned? Yes,
that's actually, yeah, that's a good point. They may have even reduced the number. I have to go back and check on that. It's only that you have to have a certain amount of people tagged. So I think that's the case in the scenario of once 100 people have been tagged with the cookie. The way that those audiences are built now is in the old days, you used to have to, for when you did remarketing, I used to have to create 5 separate tags, and I would put one on each page that I wanted, so my cart abandonment tag would be different than my main. Now they just use a rules setting, so all of those in the list, I believe, count towards the requirement, because I would agree with you, if you're a lower volume store, it can be difficult to get 100 people into your cart abandonment or your purchase section. I don't think that that's the case. I'm not 100% on that, Tom, but I think that you're good. You'd be better off setting up, because I do have a few small volume stores that are running that, and they are getting clicks and impressions in their cart abandonments.
Excellent. We got one more from Tom says thanks. We got one more from Kate, and she's asking, is there a way to make this successful for a very low cost product line, items from like $1.99 to $5.99? Would the cost per click be prohibitive?
Okay, so that's you know what, that's a tricky one. Honestly, there's a lot of factors that come into play on that. Your conversion rate is a big one. You know, it really is going to depend. I know that with regular search, so when we go in here, like for example, if you're in golf clubs, golf clubs is a very cheap click marketplace, so that's just the way it is in these search functionalities. But in the case of remarketing, you're not really competing for industry-specific space. You're competing for space in general. A lot of the times I see a lot of remarketing visitors, they get tagged and they go to weather.com, and they're getting impressions and clicks on weather.com. Well, everybody that wants to do remarketing is competing for that space. So it is a little bit more difficult, I think. I think you're going to have a hard time, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get the remarketing visibility over other advertisers that want that space. You're not going to get it for 10 cents, so that would be an issue. Can you ask her, is her average sale $1.99, or is the average product price $1.99? And we'll come back to that. It's always the answer is it really depends. I mean, it's all a testing process. What you can do, maybe you'd be better off, is to actually do more of a, in that particular case, would be to do a traditional remarketing campaign with branding messages, because when you use that style of advertising, it is very cheap, and you get thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands of impressions where your market is searching around the web, looking at stuff, and they're constantly seeing your branding. And that's just going to have an effect on building your business. That's what we call, that's that branding as opposed to a direct response advertising. Direct response advertising is when your goal is to get somebody, you're hoping that they click that link and then they go buy something immediately. Direct response is what we're used to with organic search and with pay-per-click advertising, but with remarketing, you have that ability to do something, that branding aspect that used to be only available to the bigwigs, and do it very cheaply.
Kate's also saying the average sale is around $35, if that helps for your
Okay, if your average sale is around $35, if you have any kind of margin, I definitely think that you could be testing out and trying remarketing.
Excellent. We got one last question from Adam. Adam, you were asking about the dynamic remarketing add-on for Vortex storefronts. What I would say is your best suggestion is to contact us through our storefront site's live chat, and you can speak to a sales representative through that. That's the best way to get a hold of us on that.
Yeah,
I do not have that information in front of me right now.
I think they offer that. They offer the plugin is free, correct? If they as long as they have the update package.
That could be true. I don't know off the top of my head. Yes, it is. Actually.
Adam, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a freebie, which is that's a pretty great freebie. So, we had a couple customers that we saw at the Denver conference that had already spent a couple $1,000s trying to implement dynamic remarketing before they realized that AspDotNetStorefront was working on a plugin. So the fact that you can get that in, that's a steal. They saved a lot of people a lot of money by doing that. So
that looks like it for the questions so far. But yeah, it's been a great informative webinar today, Dave.
Yep, definitely. Just as a recap, guys and ladies out there, this is definitely something. Get on the remarketing bandwagon. If you're doing it yourself, it's like anything else. This is not a set it and forget it. There is some testing involved. You're going to want to watch your numbers and ask questions, but it is extremely helpful, and it will help kind of dampen the effect if you are doing email marketing of what Joe had talked about, which is they really are a lot more of the marketing emails that are going out just aren't getting seen by anybody that has Gmail, and so the only way to really get your message out there at this point is to spend a little bit more in the remarketing advertising game.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you need any more information or if you want to view the webinar again, we will be posting it online for viewing. That should be up later this afternoon. Dave's information will be also on there. So if you want to contact him or us here at Vortex AspDotNetStorefront, please do not hesitate.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks again, Dave.